Hello and welcome to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. This is your host, Ashley from Ashley Taylor Wellness. On this podcast, we talk about all things beauty, health, wellness, and optimization. Being a high maintenance hippie represents not being boxed in, as I strongly believe that one size does not fit all. I'm a nurse turned coach, and I have learned so much about both conventional and alternative options, and I want to help you expand your options. I'm here to inspire you to learn new ways to improve your quality of life and to take your power back. I'm so excited that you're here, so let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. Today's guest is Robby Besner, and he is the co-founder of Therasage. If you have been following me on Instagram for a while, I'm sure you know how much I love these products. My favorites would definitely be the portable infrared sauna, the PEMF mat, and the heating pad. We'll talk a lot more about a lot of different options, but they've helped me tremendously and many that I know and love. So thank you so much for being here, Robby, and being willing to share about all of the things that you do to serve the population.
My pleasure for being here, and certainly having the opportunity to speak to your community and maybe close the gaps in some questions that people have and share the research and the advancements we've made in energy medicine, which I think is super important for people to understand.
Absolutely. So there must have been a reason why you started to look for other options to support the body. Is there a story as to how you got started in this journey and in starting Therasage?
Yeah, of course, there's generally a backdrop, but ours was a little bit unusual. I have a medical background, engineering, business, and a couple of other skill sets I picked up along the way. And my oldest child contracted about 25 years plus ago. She contracted chronic Lyme disease. And so I focused on the areas of her health, how she was expressing herself, and there was high levels of toxicity, inflammation, pain, and some cognitive challenges. And so I unpacked those different ways that she was expressing. Somehow I centered on toxicity. I looked at the most modern ways, both invasive and non-invasive ways to detoxify. And then I discovered that there are actually wavelengths of sunlight that will mobilize all the toxins in your body. And I thought that that was very significant. At that time, again, 25 years ago, this is the infrared spectrum of sunlight. And I looked at how it was being utilized in the medical or healthcare area. It was just being utilized by sports medicine doctors, along with other methods to help players lower their pain thresholds and heal and get back on the field faster. In terms of mainstream, there really wasn't a lot of devices available. And so I looked at that, organized a trip. I went to China for about 2.5 months, saw 65 factories, and started developing devices, mostly just for home use. My daughter started getting great results. And so the doctors, and remember, it's a sort of a different time. It's hard to look back in today's world, but there wasn't telemedicine. There wasn't these virtual medical practices as we see it today. And so in those days, we live in South Florida. So in those days, we had the main Lyme literate doctor was in New York. We had a corresponding general practitioner in Florida. We had a pain doctor. We had a psychiatrist. I mean, with Lyme, you get the whole category. So we had a team of practitioners that were helping us. And when I start to understand that dynamic, I realized that really, no matter what your health challenge is, acute or chronic, you really only spend a very small percentage of your time with that practitioner getting guidance or protocol. But most of the onus or the relationships is around your support systems, which could be your immediate family and or your community, however that falls out. And so looking at that dynamic, I took an initiative and started to develop devices. And that was kind of the unofficial genesis of the way our company started. We didn't have venture capital. We didn't have a business plan. It was all organic. And it was just to develop technology that would help my daughter help herself through her own health challenges. But early into it, her results were so incredibly great that the surrounding doctors said, hey, can you make these devices for our practices, which at that point were almost 100% Lyme. We said, okay, we started. And that was how we stepped into this. And now humbly said, we're sort of thought leaders in many areas of energy medicine, and certainly as it comes to devices that harness full spectrum infrared frequencies.
Amazing. And it seems as though true entrepreneurs are there to solve a problem. And it may not have started as a business venture, but it was to help someone that you love dearly. And then, as you said, those results were noticed by other providers, and it's just incredible. So one of my favorite types of patients in the hospitals, I don't know if the doctors felt this way, were engineers, because they would look at things a little bit differently and how to figure out a little bit deeper what was going on. And I really love that type of thought, because that's why we have the products and the things that you are offering today. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. It is a different perspective, and I see the world through a lens of contrast. And I'm always thinking, it's not just entrepreneurial, it's sort of how my brain is wired, but I'm always thinking about the next version or the future version of what the world and what life would be like if we developed a certain biotech that could serve a very important part in people helping themselves with their own journeys. And we're very passionate. We're a very philanthropically driven company. And going through the process personally with our own family dynamic, it makes us super sensitive to the rest of the world out there that is suffering with their own health challenges, have to deal with the insurance companies, have to deal with certain regulations that are around healthcare these days, and try to navigate through that, and also try to navigate through the information overload that comes through researching. We feel as a company, it's not just good enough to make a great device and deliver it on time, but we created a whole team of health supported advisors that for free you can actually tap in, make an appointment, and talk to an advisor as to help better see how any of our devices can serve you in dialing up and getting an optimal result.
Amazing. I didn't even know that. So that's an extra perk. How would someone access that? Is that via the website, or what would be the
you
best
go on
way?
our website. There's a calendar on top. It just says, sign up for a health advisor. And then you just pick out a time that serves you. And we ask a few little questions like what device and what kind of challenge you have, or how can we help you? And then we get on a call and we cover a lot of bases. And it's very exciting on many levels, because we get to feel the pulse of the way healthcare is moving. It's not just what we anticipate or the statistics that the government releases or the FDA releases. It's actually what I think is the true statistic on healthcare, because we're dealing with it on a personal level. And so we can get a feel for what people's needs are. And as a device developer, it's super important information, because as I understand that movement and how the epigenetics, how the effects of the environment is affecting everybody's gene expressions, that allows me to look into biotech and harness that to our platform so it better serves people's needs in real time.
Amazing. So what were some of the things that your daughter noticed, if you're comfortable sharing, after using some of these products? What was she struggling with, and where did she find some sort of relief from the things that she was doing?
Great question. And in our own research, and when I talk, I speak to deep science on this. So everything I'm talking about has been researched. And as a company, because our initial business model was to work B2B, from us to the practitioner, and then the practitioner to go to their patients. And that way we could leverage our research and our device development among the flow of the practice. So if you're a practitioner and you see 5,000 patients a year, and we could understand the nature of your practice and your demographic, and then marry our technology to improve the efficacy of what you're currently doing in your protocol, then we're touching a lot of lives just through that one relationship. And so that was really important to us. In research, we discovered that there's a direct correlation between inflammation and symptoms, and a direct relationship between toxicity and inflammation. So if harnessing full spectrum infrared and using certain binder protocols and things that we've developed can lower your toxicity, then you lower inflammation. And if you lower inflammation, then you lower symptoms. Now, it may not be addressing the root cause of the challenge. We're living in kind of a reductionary kind of relationship now in medicine, and the way that what we see on TV and so forth attacks people's challenges. And they want to find one root cause. But from my impression and my research, bodies are complex, and generally their health challenges are a little bit complex also. And so we kind of look at it from a more of a primal healing platform, where we try to heal the whole body and allow the systems within the body to do the heavy lifting when it comes back to bringing your health back online. And so we noticed that infrared frequencies harnessing full spectrum will mobilize all your toxins using certain binders that basically are kind of like biosponges. They collect the toxins that are mobilized. And then if your elimination system, your detox pathways are online, then we then can get these poisons and toxins out of the body. So that lowers toxicity, that lowers inflammation, then many of the symptoms go away. Mm-hmm. So now it gives the practitioner and certainly the patient hope. So when it comes to Lyme, you can get infected or exposed to Lyme and or any of the co-infections early in life. But if you're young and you have a very strong immune system and you're active, you may not show up with a symptom until 10 years later. And then by that time, your body has built up a lot of toxins that we have to eliminate. So it isn't an overnight process, but getting toxic and certainly getting symptomatic isn't necessarily overnight either. Mm-hmm. And so people in today's world are looking for a pill or looking for a magic potion that can eliminate all this, overnight. And I kind of take the approach of slow and steady wins the race when it comes to, understanding people's expressions and certainly finding the road back to good health.
Definitely. I would say that was something that changed my entire life, was supporting my body's ability to detox. And I'm in a program right now called FDN. You might be familiar with it, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. And the founder of that speaks a lot about metabolic chaos. We want it to be one thing, but perhaps it's that many systems, organs in the body are struggling, maybe compensating for one another. And really the goal of that is to help give the body healing opportunities so that it can get into the right state, so that it can prioritize what it needs to. But it sounds like if a body is overloaded with toxins and is in a major state of inflammation, that may not be easy to do for the body. So these are tools that can help facilitate that.
Yeah. And any direction, whether you're going through nutritional support, it doesn't hurt to get your detox pathways online. When you're younger, it's a little bit easier. When you're a little older, it takes a little bit more time. But everybody internalizes and externalizes and expresses themselves a little differently. Mm-hmm. And so I think in today's Western approach, it's sort of more of a homogenous, like try to fit everybody into one little compartment. And we think that everyone's individual, and certainly you are. And I would say just meeting you, that you're a very special individual. And so I think that we should address that in terms of your own healthcare and your own health journey. It's individual and it's special. And so it should be handled accordingly.
Yes. And, one size doesn't fit all. So there are a lot of things that will be appropriate for one, maybe not for another. But I want to get into the sauna because that is my all-time favorite product that you make. And I love it for a few reasons. One, this is the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. So I'm going to be honest. I have hair extensions. I have lash extensions. It's really nice. I can keep my head outside so that realistically I can use it and I can also have my hands out if I need to read a book, use my phone. I don't need to, but I found that it just made it so much easier and I could do other things while I was in there, although I want to be as relaxed as possible. So that's one of my biggest reasons that I love it, is that it's great for hair and lashes compared to the other saunas. So that's one reason. Number two, it's very effective. Some people get all the way inside. I choose to keep my head outside of it. So this is a very cost-effective sauna for what you're getting. And why is sauna use so helpful for people? What is it doing for the body?
First off, having the head out when we design this particular format, and we make a wooden one, the traditional kinds, but we're actually ranked like number one or close to number one in the world in this portable format. And the head out is important because if you have a chronic ailment, and I'm looking to raise your core temperature to create what's called a false fever or create a heat shock protein and a histamine response. The brain temperature, your brain responds to higher temperatures much differently than the rest of your body. And so if I raise your core temperature up to a fever, or let's say a false fever of 101 to 101.5, I can elicit an enormous amount of responses. Whereas when I raise your brain temperature to close to 102 to 104 in that range, then your brain cells start to break down a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this with high fevers, but sometimes it can induce a hallucinatory response. And it's mostly just the brain going like, wow, this is way too hot for me. So how
Right.
do I raise your body temperature and not raise your head temperature or your brain temperature? And so simply by creating a format where your head's out, we can execute on that. And our portable sauna goes up to 170 degrees, and most of the wooden ones will go up to maybe 145 and take an hour to get or so to get there. And we can get to 140 in 15 minutes or less.
Mm-hmm.
So from room temperature. So we're kind of a little speedboat, but a real traditional saunas are kind of a tugboat in that way. Also, for people that are claustrophobic, having your head out, you have the full advantage of the landscape of the room. Being able to bring your hands out as you like to multitask, that's what my wife does. She has a little keyboard stand. She answers customer service related questions and things like that, emails. Where me, I get up very early in the morning and I just like the solitude of being able to set my intentions and ask for forgiveness, which usually is the length of my full session is just on this forgiveness side. That's a joke, by the way. And but I am able to be in my quiet still point at that time of day. So I really try to use that opportunity to kind of get very introspective and set my intentions and so forth. Different strokes for different folks, right? Mm-hmm. So head out for brain temperature, head out for claustrophobic. Some people that still have dental amalgams and metals in their mouth. There is an off-gassing process. So if you've got lead, mercury, and so forth in the amalgams, when you heat that up and it cools off, it releases mercury gas, which is, think about how close that is to your brain. Right. So now we have the potential of heavy metal toxicity that can happen simply. Not that this, there's some science on this, but I can't dive too deep. When you're in the normal traditional cabins, you're sweating, right? And sweating is one of the, it's been proven, and we've identified a study where they've taken a drop of sweat from the same individual that has been in a hot rock sauna, like a Swedish dry sauna, a steam room, and an infrared sauna. And because of the way that infrared, when the wavelengths come into the body, it actually creates a vibration, which is called bioresonance. And that vibration is what basically shakes loose all the poisons inside of you. That's called radiant heat. The convection heat that's in the other two formats, that's heating up the ambient air that's touching your skin, raising your skin temperature, creating sweat, but it's not really mobilizing the toxins in your body. It's just pulling out what's ever in your bloodstream. Still effective, but not as effective. 85% more toxins were shown in an infrared sauna environment as opposed to hot rock or steam room. So that's huge. Okay. Yeah. Simply because of that vibrational aspect. And so when we do that and we combine it with use of a binder that's like a biosponge, it's a very efficient way with a good detox pathways. If your detox pathways are in place, it's a great way to eliminate toxins. And again, back to the initial concept of lower toxicity, lower inflammation, lower symptoms. Mm-hmm. Good for everybody. And especially in today's world where you've got chemtrails that are bringing aluminums to the soils that are being uploaded into our foods that we eat. We have glyphosates and chemicals sprayed on the foods that we eat and are in our air. So now it's in our water systems, it's in the air we breathe, it's in the foods that we're eating, and we become what I call biofilters. So we're taking all this toxic environmental stuff that into our bodies. Our normal systems that are designed to clean and screen and filter are working overtime to try to keep up pace with the external environment that keeps getting more toxic by the day. And so ultimately those toxicities build up. And unless you have, I think, an integrated process where you have a sauna, for instance, that can help pull that out, or you eat certain foods that act as binders that will help the body eliminate these toxins over time, they build up. Your filtering systems are working overtime, so they start to shut down. And all of the negative stuff, that negative spin, creates opportunities for pathogens and disease to ensue. If we just start on a primal level and we kind of eat a little cleaner and we do things in our lifestyle every day, and we're just talking about a half-hour commitment, and the statistics on using sauna it's ridiculous, Ashley. Like 3 times a week, you can improve the possibilities of not getting diabetes, not getting heart disease by close to 60%. If you do it 5 times a week, you can lower by 40%, basically most of the major causes of mortality. I mean, that's enormous. So,
Yeah.
and it's not a big commitment. So, to your point, very small price to pay for all the best attributes. And in terms of lifestyle commitment, very small time commitment in order to get all those benefits. And I'm not just speaking about my technology, infrared saunas in general, like that category. I don't really know any other intervention that gives you as much benefit for the price entry.
I would even say investment versus cost, because so many people think, oh, that costs a lot. But if you see this as an investment in your health, and many people don't, they just see that immediate cost. But would that be saving you money down the road? Would that improve your quality of life? And as someone who has been a nurse since 2013, I worked in the hospital the majority of those years, and the quality of life was terrible. And sauna use was not something that was recommended that I've ever heard. Not only does it provide amazing detoxification benefits, but it's also very good for the cardiovascular system. So I think
Exactly.
people may not realize that as well. And I use an Oura ring. And so I like to go in, and sometimes my heart rate will get up to 120 and I'm just
Right.
sitting there. So I like
Right.
to do it about 3 to 5 times a week. I live in
Okay.
Arizona. It's very, very hot. People say, well, why can't you just go in your car? A couple of reasons. One, this is infrared, so it's going to penetrate more deeply. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it was very uncomfortable for me to sit outside. I can't explain it. It was just so hot, but I could do the sauna inside of my home. And I didn't feel uncomfortable, but man, I was just drenched in sweat. So I found it to be a very accessible, comfortable, realistic way for me to get those 3 to 5 sessions in a week.
Wow, fantastic. In the comfort of your own home at the
Exactly.
time where that serves your lifestyle or your business choices, right?
Yes.
So that's enormous in itself. It's a very different expression. I live in South Florida, so we don't get quite as hot as Arizona in the middle of summer. Certainly, it's a lot more humid, and you're in a more arid environment. But that's more on the line of what we're talking about convection heat. So convection heat, you have an element that heats up the ambient air that touches your skin. Underneath your skin, there's a layer of fat that is designed anatomically to protect your essential organs and your inside environment from extreme temperatures, either heat or cold. So it's a layer, like an insulating layer. Now, when it comes to convection heat, that would be the hot rock sauna, the steam room, or what you experience when you walk outside. That's heating the ambient air temperature up. That's touching that barrier that's designed to protect you inside and not raise your core. So your body is anatomically fighting that off. It's heat frustration. You can't really hang out too long. I've been in Arizona at those temperatures, and
Yeah.
you really can't. I mean, yeah, you can't hang out in that temperature for very long without it affecting you. Conversely, the radiant heat, infrared, doesn't heat the ambient air. Actually, it goes right through and penetrates that insulating layer because the frequencies resonate at the same frequency as the water inside the fat that's in that insulating layer, which is probably 72 to 75% water. And so it seamlessly comes through that layer and then focuses on the densest properties of your body, which is your organ mass or organ tissues or muscle mass. And so it starts to resonate there, and that resonation creates heat. It also breaks loose the covalent bonds between the toxins and where they're stored. And it's particularly important for like heavy metals, where there's that covalent bond is also added. There's a magnetic attraction. So the metal has a charge, and the body has a charge. So it's super hard to get heavy metals out. And aside from using chemical chelations to purge these toxins, the best device in town is this infrared applications and certainly infrared sauna.
Yes. So a few things that I wanted to say. One is that you mentioned the word chemtrail. So I think my audience knows what you mean by that, but that's considered a conspiracy word, but it is not a conspiracy. That geoengineering is very real. Cloud seeding. I remember I lived in Los Angeles, and it was published in 2016 in the LA Times about some cloud seeding with silver iodide. So I know a lot of people say that that's not a thing, but either way, there are a lot more toxins in this world than ever before. And maybe if you don't call it chemtrails, and that's the slang, please look into geoengineering and cloud seeding and just realize we might be exposed to more chemicals than ever before. Another thing is that people say all the time, well, we have detox organs. Why do we need to detox? And to that, I would say, because we're exposed to more toxins than ever before. Is there anything you would add to that piece of it as far as why it's more essential now than ever before?
Well, there's this concept. First off, I agree with you. And when I talk about chemtrails, I'm not coming from a place of judgment or
Sure, of
a
course.
conspiracy. It's just the toxic world that we're living in and the different ways that we're exposed to it. On the back of that, I can just speak to the trends we're seeing in clinic. And so what we're seeing is, women in their early teens, like 14 and 15, expressing signs of infertility, and guys at 18 with very low testosterone levels. Now, that is not genetic. That's what's called epigenetic, which is the effect of the environment and the choices that we are making individually and how that affects our genetics, turning certain switches on and off that create maybe recessive or certain traits that we're all carrying, but may never have been surfaced and expressing itself in a symptoms before the recent times. And so I kind of look back at my lineage. I'm a little bit older than you. About 65 years ago, my grandmother used to take me by my hand and walk down the block. She didn't have an electric refrigerator. There was a little ice block that went on top. There weren't leftovers. You shopped for fresh food that day. You ate what was prepared. And the next day we started all over again. And so now when you can go to a gas station, and I'm not coming from a place of judgment, but you can buy a Twinkie that has a shelf life. And if anybody's watching like Twinkies, go for it. But any food source that has a shelf life of 500 years, like you start to think about what's in it and the chemicals, if
Mhm.
you look at ingredients, it's today's world. And I think part of your podcast and part of today is to just show your audience that there are other approaches. They're not necessarily very expensive, but
Mhm.
there are other ways to look at it, and it depends on your goals. And so when I look at the trends, and this is the sad part, because with all the money we're spending on cancer research and diabetes research and heart disease and all that, those trends are not changing. They're actually getting a little bit steeper. But the shocking trend is that the age that people are getting these challenges is coming down.
Yes.
And so when you see young people that are expressing themselves that way, you start to wonder, where is it all coming from? So it's not just what's happening with air pollution. It's all around us. And it's not just one thing. Like for instance, electromagnetic fields, that 5G.
Absolutely.
So,
And
yeah.
one of the benefits that I experience is that it's really helped me with my mood and energy and depression. So, one theory that's out there is that inflammation is connected to depression. That seems to be very true for me. If I eat a lot of processed food, let's say I'm traveling or not at home, or I don't prioritize that, I'm going to feel that. And it's the sum of all of our choices. So if we're going to do certain things, how can we support our body? And that's really what this is about. It's not to live in fear. Speaking about the toxins and the changes in our world, it's more so what tools are available to empower us and improve our quality of life. And I don't care about living the longest life, but I want to live the best quality life. Long would be great too. But I think we measure health many times by you're not dead. And I just don't think that that's good enough. I think that quality of life is really undervalued and underconsidered in the conventional world of healthcare that I worked in for so long.
I totally agree with you. And you know what? I've been fortunate because I've had the opportunity to travel a lot. And when you step outside the US view of things and you go to Asia, and they practice what I call incremental health. So every day they're working on movement with like Tai Chi movements, and their
Mhm.
foods are tonics. And so every quarter they change their dietary expressions so that they're 3 to 6 months ahead of the way that their organs. So in winter, when the body's in hibernation, they're already doing food choices that are tonics to support liver. So when we come out of winter and these organs in your body comes more online, your body is prepared from a nutritional point of view. So when I saw that and I came back to the US, I'm thinking, we don't necessarily have it right, but we could take lessons from other
Mhm.
cultures. And so I see that in the Asian bloc. I certainly see it in the European bloc, and then in the Ukrainian bloc, like the Baltic states and in the Ukraine. I mean, for them to do, infrared sauna, it's a community thing. They get together
Mhm.
and they can't wait to do community sauna. And so there's saunas in people's homes. I mean, it's somewhat novel to the US, but when you step outside the US, it's very prevalent, as cold immersion is. And the contrast of doing what we call fire and ice. So doing the hot sauna and then going into cold immersion, what that does for the body, it's remarkable that these inexpensive, easy to employ into your lifestyle techniques can make a huge difference in how you feel today and also in your general health and wellness trajectory.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
So when I first heard about the power of light influencing our cells, our biology, that was at a biohacking conference in 2017. I don't know if you attended any of those. I think I've seen you at some of the ones in Beverly Hills, but did you go to the one in, I believe it was Glendale in 2017?
Honestly,
Not sure.
They tell me where to go and what to dress. I get that memo about an hour before I'm supposed to appear somewhere.
Okay. That's where at the biohacking conference, I asked you that question because I was told that light is responsible for up to 80% of our biology. And I really struggled to wrap my mind around that. At that time, I was a little bit new to the alternative world. I'm a conventionally trained nurse. So I just kind of sat with that for a little bit. And I did get a red light device and I used blue blockers. And I started to be a little bit more intentional about getting morning sun and all these things. So infrared light is a light spectrum that can be very healing to the body. And in nature, we would experience that closer to sunrise and sunset. Is that correct?
Pretty much. It's very close to the near wavelength. It's already been defined in science by NASA, the actual wavelength. So imagine it being like a radio station. 105 is R&B and 107 is country rock. So each of these nanometers is the way that it's the calibration actually will offer a different attribute to the body. And that's why as a bioscientist and even in our device development, we've taken what we call a full spectrum approach where we capture about 90% of the wavelengths because each of them will do something different for the body. I really appreciate what you say about light. Like when people think about biophoton modulation, so bio being the body, photon being light, and the modulation being the different degrees of these light energies, how they affect your body. But when people think about light therapy, they're just thinking, well, it's light outside, like the rainbow. What you see is visible light. But the light that you're talking about is invisible. Most of it's invisible to the eye. And that's where the magic is. It's kind of like where the Wizard of Oz lives behind the curtain, because all of these wavelengths, and in nature, in fact, goes back to Tesla and Einstein. They did studies where they looked at the effects of the thermals, sun thermals, that's light energy, and how it affects nature. And they've come out with statements like that without infrared spectrums, there'd be no life on the planet as we know it in both the plant and animal kingdom. That's how important. Infrared spectrum is responsible for heating up 80% of the surface of the planet. So this is, big stuff. And it's not heating the air. It's heat going directly to the surface of the earth and affecting every organism on the planet. So it's super important. And yeah, the red light, it's a very important frequency, but it also overlaps the near infrared frequencies. So when people talk about vasodilation, which is the expansion of your little veins and arteries that improves blood flow, that improves like anything in your blood, that could be nutrition or supplementation, vitamins you're taking, and oxygen. When we can move that around your body at a higher rate, 10% or 15% greater rate, that's giving all of your organs and your tissues and on a cell level more exposure to all the elements of healing, including your genetic material. And so that's not trivial. And it's all about these light frequencies that do that, as well as there are 3 transient gases that the body makes. And one of them is nitric oxide. And that expands vessels. It also triggers your blood to grab more oxygen when you make it available. And what most people don't realize is that starting in your mid-20s to early 30s, our body already starts to make less nitric oxide naturally. And so that's one of the principal reasons why we age, because our blood's ability to hold on to oxygen starts to diminish. That's called oxidative stress. And so we can easily reverse that by getting a little bit more sunlight, certainly using sauna, and moving more blood around. And then, of course, triggering your blood to grab more oxygen. So these are very simple mechanisms, not expensive, that are all rolled up into this simple device that if you just use it regularly, you could bring yourself back online and keep yourself healthy.
Yes. And one thing I wanted to touch on is the difference between, a conventional sauna and an infrared sauna. So you briefly touched on this, but my understanding is that the infrared light is going to penetrate much more deeply and therefore be able to help our organs detox. And that is probably why you're suggesting a binder, because we can dump things, overload the system. And if our drainage is not great, meaning pooping 1 to 3 times a day, sweating within a few minutes, I made the mistake of detoxing on a cellular level faster than what my body could keep up with. So I think that's interesting. It's very, very powerful technology. But what I learned at Cellcore that was also in alignment with Therasage is low and slow, and more is not better. Work your way up. So if someone is newer to using the sauna, where should they start so that they're not, it's a hormetic stressor, just like cold, just like a lot of other things, exercise. So more is not always better. We want to listen to our bodies and acclimate in a way that isn't overwhelming it. So someone's brand new, they might be highly toxic, they don't know, but what would you suggest to someone? It's their first time trying the sauna at home.
Okay, great question, and beautifully put. Low and slow has really been part of our mantra. The first question is, how is that person expressing themselves? I do draw a line when we talk to families when they want to address their children, and that could be anywhere from 3 years old to, let's say, 18, because children's metabolisms move a little bit quicker. They're more adaptive, and they're likely to respond to sauna differently and quicker than an adult will. So let's say we talk about an adult, and let's say it's the average adult, and they basically don't have health challenges. We would look for a near-term goal of 130 degrees for about 30 minutes over the first 4 weeks of their introduction.
How many days do you think?
Well, it's cumulative, so the more you do it, the better result. But I would think maybe 3 days a week, like in the beginning, kind of like what you're doing.
Okay.
It's really about, I kind of like the low and slow approach to start with. If you're older and you're fragile, or you have a health challenge and very symptomatic, we could maybe make it to, again, 2 to 3 times a week. But maybe I'd start you off at 115 degrees, just slightly warmer than your core. And maybe we'd see 15 or 20 minutes. It takes 10 minutes for the average adult to get enough wavelengths, frequencies in their body for a bioresponse or a physiological event, we call it. And so a 20-minute session is 10 minutes of therapy. So that's why that 30 minutes is 20 minutes of therapy approximately. And so that's our goal. The beauty of having a portable sauna in your home, and again, it doesn't have to be ours, but the idea of having it in your home is that you can kind of work it into your lifestyle, and you can work your way up in the schedule. It may have taken you years to get symptomatic, and so this isn't a quick turnaround. But I would say within 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to see a marked difference in the way you feel. And that might be better night's sleep at night. It could be waking up with more energy. It could be more focus, like in your job, or in your being present in your family rather than walking with brain fog, and things that are associated with inflammation. Remember, toxicity and inflammation work pretty close together. And so if you can use the sauna and start to step into it, and then if you're very, very symptomatic, like we work with Lyme patients that have trouble, they're having a detox response, they can't get out of bed, a Herx reaction, they call it. Mm-hmm. And we may start them off on binders to start with before they even get in sauna, just to kind of lower their toxicity level, and then slowly walk them into a sauna protocol. So it's not very time intensive. Now, when you're going for heavy metals, or you're going actually just to go after root causes, now we're talking, maybe for 45 to 60 minutes in that range, and 160 to 170, our sauna goes up to 170. Now, the average Lyme patient, it could take 6 to 8 weeks before we can get them positioned, because we want them to have a good journey. And it's mind-boggling to me, particularly in the Lyme industry, and it's not with all Lyme doctors, but it is pervasive, that they need to show the patient that their protocol works. Mm-hmm. So they say to the patient, well, you're going to take this antibiotic, or you're going to take this protocol, and there's going to be a natural die-off. That's the detox response. So you're going to feel sicker before you feel better. And so we have a general goal in mind, 130 for 30 minutes. But we shade that protocol or that goal based on how your body's responding. We talked about how individual we are, and how we all take the same kind of protocol and respond a little differently.
Right.
And so what we would like to see is that you have kind of a smooth ride. It's not direct. There's a little zigzags. and we go kind of low and slow in our approach.
Absolutely. So, a fever, we are so afraid of fevers. And my concern with a fever would be the brain getting too hot. So it sounds like that is not going to be an issue in this sauna because the head is out if you choose to do that. But I still will sweat from my face, which is interesting. But I mean, it's rolling off of the body. So that sounds like an additional safety measure. And as far as binders, I use biotoxin binder or occasionally Virad Chem. Those are from Cellcore. Are those binders you use, or is there something else you recommend?
No, I like them.
Okay.
We've used Cellcore for many years, and we know the principles and we know the formulators. We have recently worked with Dr. Stephen Cabral, and just came out with a universal binder that has a little zeolite. There's basically two classes of binders. The biotoxin is what we call the big sponge. So it's going to get and soak up many of the toxins the body takes in from the environment, the air, water, and food that we ingest every day, that the body stores. And about 70% of that is stored in your fat. So that's why very often, Ashley, that when people go on dietary programs, whether it's with a doctor or you just want to learn a different way to eat, it shrinks the fat cell. And in the process, it's actually liberating a lot of the poisons and toxins that are stored in the fat. And so oftentimes you go on a diet and you might have experienced this, wow, I don't really feel so good. And you go, well, I got to live with it because I'm on this diet. And you think that it has to do with that, but it really is a detox response that you're getting just from knowing that it's working. So now imagine if you were doing a weight loss program and you were going in sauna, that's also going to pull these toxins out of that fat molecule. You have two pretty strong forces that are going to be bringing these toxins out. And so the use of a binder. So I like the biotoxin. I like Dr. Cabral's universal binder.
Okay.
And basically what you talked about, VRAD, is a zeolite or a silica derivative. And those are really good for nanotoxins, mycotoxins that are a byproduct of mold. But many of the microorganisms, the parasites and so forth, they do three things really well. They replicate, they use your body resources, and they poop. And when they die off for whatever reason through their own life cycle, that's also, their skeletons are also a form of toxin. So having a specialized binder that can go after those kinds of toxins is super cool. That's why I love Cellcore. Yeah. And they also have the HMET, which is great for heavy metals and environment. The VRAD is really great for radiation. So if you're on the West Coast of the US and you're getting some of the radiation trails from Fukushima and what they're experiencing over there, it's showing up in their foods and in their bodies. So it's really great to be able to use specialized binders that will help pull some of these substances out of the body.
So let's say you're using the sauna and you feel depleted and tired afterwards. My thought would be it was too much. It just was too much for the body. It's not necessarily that it's bad, but maybe you overdid it, and to kind of reel it back in. And I know we want to go for those high temps for the long times, but my suggestion would be start with binders. Would you say 20 or 30 minutes before getting into the sauna is sufficient, or what time frame would you say for that?
Yeah, within an hour. You don't have to be religious about it. You take the binder. You're talking to a binder fanatic. And so I don't just do binders before sauna and before bed every day, but I also microdose binders through the day based on my activity level. So I'm a cyclist. So before a bike ride, I'll take a binder. Because I know there's lots of ways to mobilize toxins in the body. It's just not infrared sauna. So movement is one of the better ways to mobilize toxins. So sauna, you're sitting still. And like you said earlier, like you can raise your core, your heart rate, you can move your body, your metabolism, you're just sitting there relaxing and burn 500 calories in a session. That's amazing. Tremendous, right?
Yes.
But imagine if you do that in concert with all the other activities that you do. If you go to the gym and Pilates, movement, yoga, any of these kinds of ways to move your core temperature also will mobilize toxins. So when I know I'm going to an event, even, I don't know if you ever had a body massage, but have you ever had a massage and you get up from the table and you feel a little woozy or a little, you're like, it takes a little
Definitely
bit to
move things around. Sure.
Yeah. So don't you think when the masseuse is working your muscles, they're pushing these toxins into your bloodstream and that's circulating up to your brain, and your brain gets disoriented on the extra high toxic load. And it's super sensitive to that. And so, having a binder, like just doing a little microdose of binder before your massage, now the toxins are mobilized, but you've got an active ingredient in your bloodstream that's there designed to soak up all these poisons.
Exactly.
It's fantastic. So
So
I again, low cost of entry, like what you can pull out in toxins, and just the simple protocol we're talking about today is going to rock the world of everybody listening. If you just do these simple things, that's how amazing it is and powerful.
Yeah. And a couple things I really love about the sauna. One, my boyfriend and I share it. So we have our own neck towel that you can zip off because
right.
and then you can throw it in the washer, which is really nice too. There also is an ozone module, and I put that inside. So that is something where you can receive the ozone through the skin because everything's open. So that's really nice. It's not at such a high concentration that it's dangerous. I mean, it has that ozone smell, but my head is outside and the ozone is within. So that's an extra that I like. And the lights, are they called tri-lights? Is that the name of them?
Yes, that's correct. Okay.
So a lot of people have asked me, can I take those lights and use them outside of the sauna? And you can. So cool. So there's, I believe, a $30 cord, very reasonable, that you can plug those lights into and use them outside of the sauna setting.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Cool. We developed the tri-light for the sauna initially, and that really was the byproduct of clinical research. And so I taught for 18 years at a health institute in West Palm Beach called Hippocrates. And the venue that I loved was sort of private. We had 40 guests that would be in my class. And on the other side of the room was this huge mural of Hippocrates. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm staring at it, and I started to have dreams about it. And so basically what manifested was, one of his big sayings is food is your medicine. But the food of Hippocrates' day, 200-300 years ago, is not the food of today.
Right.
Nor is the environment the same as it was in the day of Hippocrates. And so I started to think that the normal format in our Thera360 was really taking a page out of the playbook in nature. So we dialed in and created a cocktail of frequencies that matched pretty closely to the way the sun delivers infrared to the planet. But what's different is that the environment of the planet has changed. And how people are expressing themselves. So I felt that we needed to bring a little bit more near infrared frequencies and red light into the sauna cabin to enhance the cocktail of frequencies in the cabin that your body's exposed to, so that it better matches and helps the body's physiology in today's world. And so the tri-light is a kind of an engineering feat. Before us, and even now, predominantly LEDs are light emitting diodes, and they're monochromatic. That means there's a single light per light bulb. So I looked at it as a researcher, a bioengineer, device developer. I said, well, why is that? Why is it monochromatic? Is it an industry norm, or is there actually an engineering physics reason why it has to be that way? And it was an industry norm. So someone developed an LED, decided to make a whole bunch of them in different frequencies to sell a lot of light bulbs. Basically, it was what it came down to. And so I curated 3 wavelengths that are very unique, and I have them in one diode. So when I power my diode, I am delivering 3 times the amount of light energy, biophoton energy modulation into your body, into your cell, to do very specific things. And so it changed the whole, that's why we call it the 360 plus, because when I brought that in, that was the plus, bringing those new energies in. And it became such a unique experience for the people that were using saunas. Many of the customers asked the same thing, can I take it out? And then we thought, as a company, maybe we should just offer the tri-light as a standalone, which we do. So for $30 more, you can unvelcro one of the pads that's inside your sauna and take it outside. Now you've got a very lightweight, flexible format of light energy you can bring right on the body. The closer you bring this energy to your body, the higher emissivity or cellular absorption. And we're close to 99% of all the energy we generate comes into your cell, which supports mitochondria. How do you think the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, where do you think it gets their energy from? It's from the earth energy or from the sun energy. And we harness all of those energies in our Thera360. And certainly by taking the tri-light out and putting that on body, you're now bringing those energies right to where you need some healing, but also to your body to support mitochondria or mitochondria energy, which is cell health. And part of our understanding and theories in laboratory is that we basically get sick on a cell level and we heal on a cell level. So if I can bring in earth energies and create a primal platform that actually supports cell health, now we're talking about a longevity plan. And, I know we're diving a little deep, but these are part of the elementary staples or pillars behind our thinking here at Therasage.
Absolutely. So mitochondria, I know it's a word, powerhouse of the cell. We remember that from biology, but it's so much more than that. Cellcore also is really big on making sure that we have the energy in the body that we need to detox. Detoxification requires a lot of energy, and we may not have enough if our mitochondria are not fully functioning. So I did an organic acids test, and that showed me my mitochondrial function. It was not good. After several years of using red light and different things, mostly light therapy and minimizing blue light, being mindful of light and screens, especially after dark, first 30 minutes of my day, last 30 minutes of my day, it made a huge difference and significantly improved. I don't know the exact numbers, but let's say it was like 8 out of 100. It went to 85 out of 100 over several years. So that is so important. And a lot of people are dealing with fatigue, I believe, because their mitochondria are impaired and or bodies are overloaded with toxins and inflammation. So those are important things to address. And it sounds like the sauna is absolutely able to help with those. It's not just the detox, but is it feeding the cells by giving that red light? What does that do for the mitochondria?
Totally. Absolutely. It's one of the things we're going for.
Yes.
Developing and eliciting nitric oxide, which is that transient gas we talked about earlier. Cell energy is key, particularly if you've got a chronic ailment. The other thing we do is we don't have any electromagnetic fields. That's really important because most, and I'm saying like almost 90% of the other companies that are in that area, they may have pretty good technology, but they also generate an EMF, electromagnetic field, at the same time. And we've seen in lab that there is actually a conflict, a physiological conflict. So if the body's concept, the brain's concept is to protect, serve and protect, maintain the integrity, and it has some of these, forces that aren't natural, like some of the elements in our environment are not natural. And so the body has to figure out how to balance that. And so same with the invisible energies that are out there. And so again, earlier we talked about these stressors. So it's a big thing. And so we as a company, we didn't really understand the magnitude because we started to remediate electromagnetic fields 17 years ago before it wasn't vogue to do it. It wasn't, people weren't aware of it. But I just looked at it more like, I don't really know the impact. I clearly wasn't able to forecast the cell phone industry, how that expanded. I wish I had, because I probably would have bought cell phone stock and done very well with that. But what I just thought about was just from a biophysiological point of view, that if the body is presented with man-made exogenous frequencies and then receiving the beautiful energies of sun and nature, what's it going to do? Is it going to compromise what you're receiving against protection? What's that deal? And truth be told, back then, I really didn't know. But I just thought if I figured out a way to get EMF and these exogenous frequencies off the table by remediating, then all you would do is get what happens in nature. You receive pure healing energy. The sun isn't plugged into an outlet, okay? But these devices are. And anything that's plugged into an outlet or uses a battery will generate a current that's going to create a field. And so I think part of our fundamentals or the pillars here in device development is to try to break out all of the man-made influences, keep them under control, and then just deliver as efficiently as we can the energies and the healing powers of nature.
Amazing. Well, I want to talk about some of the other products, but one last question that I did get from someone about the sauna. Do you need to replace or wash the outside piece in some way? When I'm using it, I will take a towel because my boyfriend and I share it. I put a towel on the floor and I put a towel on the chair, and then I always will leave it open so it can air dry, and I'll take off the neck towel and wash it. But what about the actual, I don't know what you would call it. We
call that a jacket. The jacket.
Okay,
right?
So anything
as opposed to the carrying case. Frankly, just what you talked about it's relatively maintenance free.
Okay.
The only thing that we do or recommend sometimes, depending on how it's used, like in a family that's using it and or in a clinical setting or a gym where there's multiple people using it, then we might suggest using an essential oil like Thieves or something like that, and spritzing a little bit just to sanitize it, make it feel fresh in between uses. The idea of using towels on the chair and the grounding mat on the floor is mostly to capture the toxins that are coming off the body, because as we said earlier, 85% of the toxins are going to come through your sweat. So it's now coming into the towel, and that towel you can take off. And usually I recommend to wash those towels differently with your laundry, like your underwear and your t-shirts. So you don't transfer the toxins to your t-shirt, then you put your t-shirt back on and potentially you could absorb it. But there really isn't much. We do sell a cleanser. So it's a spray cleanser that's bioavailable. It's, non-toxic. And so you can spritz that on the outer cabin. Some people that do perspire a lot, they may be occasionally like a little ring of perspiration. It's mostly the salt that you're seeing that comes, that's in your sweat, that sort of creates a little ring or a little layer, and that you can just spray, spritz, wipe off. I'm a Virgo Libra, so I'm a little anal retentive. So once a week, what I do is I take a soft organic soap, like liquid soap, I put it on a damp rag, and I just sort of wipe down the areas of the inside. That with an essential oil it's pretty much maintenance free.
Amazing. So sauna, see if binders are appropriate. You don't have to use them, but they could be very helpful. Making sure you're properly hydrated. And that's not just water, making sure there are minerals there, low and slow. Don't push it. If you're not sweating after 30 minutes, I would just continue to get in and let your body acclimate versus just forcing yourself to stay in until you sweat. Would you agree with that part?
Totally. And I don't know why I see this more in women than guys, but many women talk about that they don't sweat very easily. There are some diseases that I know that are out there, but it's like 1 in a million. So generally, there's two main reasons why people have trouble sweating. And the first one is because they're dehydrated. And so when I say that to somebody, they'll say to me, but I drink so much water, but the thing is that the water they're drinking is not bioavailable. It means it's not getting into the cell. And that's generally because it's not structured, or there's contaminants in the water. And so it basically passes right through you. And so, or if it's, if it's in a plastic bottle that's been extruded, then there's challenges with leaching of those chemicals into the water itself, BPA and a lot of the phthalates that I'm sure you're aware of that aren't very healthy for you and accumulate. The body just can't get rid of them naturally. It's just bombarded with it. And so hydration is a big important thing. And we do ask for all of our customers to, whether you've got a chronic challenge or not, to drink 8 to 10 ounces of water before you do sauna, and the same amount after. So the water before promotes sweating, and the water after actually lowers the toxic burden on the body, which will kind of slow down or avoid any kind of detox response, which could be lightheadedness, dizziness, nausea, headaches, temporary vision, and hearing impairment. These are detox responses. Like you said earlier, you feel tired. That's a detox response. So it's very, very normal. And so many people, they do sauna before bed. The best time to do sauna is actually in the morning. Just think about it like from a primal point of view. When we lived on the land in tents and caves, we woke up to sunlight. That's what that sauna is. It's sun energy. And so it actually wakes up a lot of your body systems. So now many people do sauna at night just because of their lifestyle. It's the only time they can do it. So if that's the case, we do recommend an hour or so before bed, because in the beginning, when you're toxic, actually it's going to make you tired, and you'll have like the best night's sleep ever. That's in the beginning. But then as your body acclimates and you become less toxic, that same session that made you sleepy is going to energize you. It would be the equivalent, Ashley, of me saying, go to the gym, run a mile or two, come right home, try to get into bed, and go to sleep. Your metabolism is revving. Like, what you wind up doing is counting the popcorns on your ceiling until you can, maybe for an hour or so. So that's not the direction I would go. But I can see how people could get the feeling, because again, in the beginning, you're going to feel more relaxed and tired. And we have done heart rate variability studies, and not just our sauna, but infrared saunas and infrared technology will shift your autonomic nervous system from being sympathetic dominance, which is that fight and flight, being anxious, as most of us are these days, to that parasympathetic, somber state. So it's terrific to calm your body down, to get your body's systems online. And again, in terms of sequencing, if you can do it earlier part of the day, closest to when you wake up, you're going to get a huge benefit.
Even better. Okay, great. And the only other things I would add to that, shower immediately after, because everything is open and we just release all these toxins. We want to rinse it off immediately. And I like to take a shot of Quinton hypertonic, which is electrolytes and minerals. There are many kinds, but you want to make sure you're replenishing, especially if you're going to be detoxing. So
Great suggestion. Love that.
Yes. I mean, that's my favorite product. I know we talked a lot about it, but some others that I really, really love that I want to talk about, and some others that are newer to me, the TheraPro PEMF mat. Please tell us about that. And I say this because I have tried other PEMF. It was not something I did at home. It was something I did at a provider's office. Way too much for me. I didn't like how I felt. Could have been just like we're speaking about with the sauna, maybe too much, too fast, but I love the TheraPro, and I can measure the benefits for myself by restorative time and just my readiness and how it's affecting me. So the recommendations say, I believe 1 hour twice a day to start. It's a long time. I'll use my brain tap or do a meditation or do something else. I try not to use my phone while I'm laying on that mat. So tell us a little bit about PEMF, how this mat is different and all the features that it has, because it's pretty incredible. It's not just PEMF.
The TheraPro is actually a 6-in-1 device. And so it's what we call a second generation. So we came out with a series of on-body applications. That was the first generation. And the whole category, we call it instant calmer because it does calm your body down, right? Play on words. So the Pro actually has full spectrum infrared. It has red light therapy. It has PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic fields. It has 5 different gemstones in it that have all different energies, earth energies. And it also has a TENS unit on board. And so you can, with the controller, you can actually have all these devices going, all these different modalities or interventions can be going at the same time, or you can mix and match them based on what you're looking for, your goal. Mm-hmm. So the idea, and it kind of came from, again, earlier we were talking about one of our categories is pro athletes, and they're on the road a lot. Some of them, half their season is on the road. And so they get accustomed to using these technologies when they're working with their trainers and they're home. But when they're on the road, it's a different deal. And so the idea of having an all-in-one feature in a mat that's very lightweight, that can roll up and carry in a little case, not just for the athletes, but for the average individual, we thought was a great idea. And so it's relatively new. It's less than a year in the market. We took the market by storm, frankly, because we're a trusted brand and we do a lot of the research and we vet everything out for sometimes years before we bring products to market. The PEMF is a very particular feature. It's pulsed electromagnetic fields. So your illustration earlier, and many times in clinics, they use very high-powered PEMF devices. Rightfully so, they should be administered by a clinician who understands what is the proper power that should be used for that individual. So we make home devices. We make devices and solutions that people can use in their home. And so when we started to think it through, we had the ability to dial up the power. That wasn't a challenge. But we thought if we did that and someone didn't use it properly, they could actually find themselves trying to help, but actually not setting them back a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so we tried in our research, we tried to find the proper power that would give a lot of benefits without the possibility of them overdoing it. So the highest powered, like the $40,000 PEMF units, are about 8,000 Gauss. Our device is just under 1,000 Gauss. So it's not those clinical ones that probably you tried, is 8 times more powerful. But, once again, low and slow. Right. What's the rate? What's the rush? Like you're in your own home, you're reading, you're relaxing, you're watching TV. You're meditating like you do. I love the idea that you combine your own introspective work with using the mat so that you can stack guided meditation with your sauna or use it with the pad. And that's really the beauty of this, understanding what all these technologies do, work them into your lifestyle, combining them so you get the synergistic effect, meaning that 2 and 2 doesn't make 4, 2 and 2 could be 6, or 2 and 2 could make 8. Because each of these technologies by themselves are really beneficial, but the combination of them is even more beneficial. That's the concept. I'm sitting on it right now. It's on the back of my chair.
We'll have video if you want to show us.
Oh, Okay. Basically, bathing in these wonderful frequencies all day, all those wireless networks, they're generating frequencies that affect us. They're just different kinds of stressors. And so I love when I'm in my own home and I talk about this when I'm on stage and I teach, I talk about creating a safe place. And one of the things is to get rid of electromagnetic fields that are harmful for you, but also bring in energy fields, or like I call it, energy medicine, that surround yourself with loving frequencies that happen in nature that support your body function. And so this TheraPro is very affordable. It's flexible. It's very portable. It serves the community for what I think the way people are expressing themselves. So pain relief, challenges with anxiety, and moving that your autonomic nervous system into a somber or a quiet state, getting your body into a still point. Most of us, they can't do it. Either it's not taught to you, or you think you always have to be kind of endorphin or kind of an adrenaline by drinking a lot of caffeine products or Red Bulls. I've never had a Red Bull yet, and I
Wow.
just read
You're not
about it.
missing
Oh
out.
yeah, yeah. You can do it every so often, but when you start doing it regularly, then it starts to affect your physiology, your adrenals, your thyroid. Many of the regulating systems and organs designed for the body just get overworked and they start to break down. So as a young person, you can work with it, but as you get older, you have to start to think about the stuff that you've done before. So even from today, if we could plant the seed of many of these concepts to the younger audience or people that are listening today, I think that that's very worthwhile.
Great. And I also really found it interesting that there are 9 different settings. So 9 different frequencies, would you call it, for the PEMF?
8
8.
frequencies. Number 9
Oh, that's right.
is
9 runs through
yeah,
all of them.
yeah, it does. It gives you six
Okay.
seconds of each one. That's the one I'm on every day. But
Okay.
the first two are designed to slow you down. So if you're anxious, to quiet you down. If you're having trouble sleeping, to quiet you down. The
Okay.
second two functions are to actually motivate you on a cell level. So there, if you're getting ready for a competition or you need to be focused at work, putting together a paper, research paper, whatever, that's P3 and P4. P5 through 8 are deeper, higher hertz wavelengths. So the approach that we took was a moderately powered unit from the power, so about 1,000 Gauss. And rather than giving you a full range or full spectrum of EMF, some of them being harmful, what we
Mm-hmm.
did is we curated hertz levels that are very specific, that do very specific things. And all we do is we just offer those to you. So we're pulsing those very important wavelengths. And so 5 through 8 are designed for deeper and longer treatment times for people with chronic pain challenges, improving blood circulation, and for general overall health. But that's how we broke it out. And then, of course, the P9 is a sampling of all of them.
Yes, that's the one that I typically use. And one of my best friends is healing from breast cancer right now. She is in school, naturopathic medicine school. And so she's really all about learning and she's very data driven. And she learned that there were certain frequencies, I believe in the 400 range. I'm not sure exactly, but she found something, the closest one to that on Therasage. She's been doing that every day. We both have Oura rings. We share our scores in this group and she's thriving. And I'm not saying that that's the only thing, but it seems to really be helping her. So it can be used for so many different things. I don't have anything like that, but for me, it's more so to get into that restorative mode. So
Right.
have you heard of people using this in addition to other treatments to support their body?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that people don't understand, and I searched for this and have for years, but we've discovered recently just through the work of Dr. Jerry Tennant, who looks at the body through as if it was a switchboard, like a circuit board. And so he looks at body energy and cell energy. And what he discovered was that a cell needs a certain amount of millivolts in order for it to just be stable and strong. And then it needs a certain amount of millivolts if it's in distress or it's being attacked by a pathogen. And so understanding that is really important. And the last part is that we're not grounded anymore. You're probably the 1%ers like me that kick your shoes off, walk barefoot, touch the earth when you can.
Yeah.
You go out and you walk on the sand, or you walk on your on your lawn, front lawn of the grass. I'm a tree hugger, so I would grab a book and lean against a tree. Anything rooted into the ground brings earth energy into your body. And so these are simple, inexpensive ways to neutralize the effect of EMF, the bad frequencies that are running all around, and also to charge your body and charge your cell up with the amount of electrons it needs in order for it to be strong enough to create a supportive healing platform. And so in today's modern world, we don't touch the earth and we don't get recharged. Our body batteries don't get recharged. And that keeps us at an energy deficit, even on a cell level. And so this information is so powerful, Ashley, that I've actually changed the sequencing that when I teach and I practice in our clinics. I do polarity testing first, and I charge the body up with electrons. So I assume that people aren't touching the earth, so I know that their polarities are off. So I flip their circuits the other way. Then I charge them up with earth energy, and then I'll do the intervention that's appropriate for them. And we're noticing somewhere between a 30 and 40% enhancement in just the way their bodies are receiving the therapies and also how long they last. It's sustainable. So I think this is a very important breakthrough.
Yeah. I mean, every product that I've tried, I love. I also have the heating pad. It's very large. I think it was size medium, but it is very large. So that's a great one. And there's a smaller as well. So I want to be respectful of time. I think we went a little bit over, but I just wanted to know, what were some of your other favorites that we may not have mentioned? And the ozone bubbler, I hear about all the time. So what can you tell me about that? And I definitely want to talk about the TheraFrost and the weighted blanket as well, and any others that come to mind.
All right. So the bubbler is another kind of ozone device. We have an original approach to it because there's what's called clinical grade ozone, and that should be regulated and monitored in a clinical setting with a doctor or healthcare provider, because there's a concept, it's called gamma, defined by the pure oxygen versus the oxygen in the air and that mixture. In clinical, you can actually dial and adjust and regulate that concentration. But the problem with that is that even if you read about it or, research it, the FDA will give all kinds of warnings about using ozone because it's basically very caustic to your breathing pathways and to your skin. It's an irritant. But we have a very low gamma or a very low concentration of ozone. So again, low and slow. In the sauna, we use the ozone device because, as you mentioned earlier, when you start to sweat, your skin becomes an accentuated breathing organ. So you let go of toxins, but you can breathe in whatever in the sauna. So that's why we developed the TheraO3 for the sauna. We also have another device, is an aromatherapy device, because essential oils are basically like medicines. And so when your body and your skin is open, becomes that accentuated breathing organ, we can then marry whatever essential oil you put in that diffuser. We don't use water. We just use 100% of the organic oil. And now your skin is breathing in basically essential oils, which most medicines, pharmaceutical medicines, synthetics are made from, they mimic plants and flowers. Like the essence of plants and flowers is where they grab medicines from. So why not use the essential oil? That's the genesis of these, and get the pure energies of them when, again, they're organic. So we've created that is a great combination or stack. So the bubbler has a hose to it. It has a little bit higher gamma. So if you put that hose to your nose, you're going to cough. If you cough, that means it's an irritant. So you don't do that. You have to use the bubbler in a water as a transport system. So many people fill up their sink halfway, kitchen sink, they float their vegetables, their food sources. It'll kill all the bacteria, all the parasites, all the viruses, all the mold. It'll actually peel away a lot of the chemicals that are used in agriculture off the chemicals, make them. And I use it for not just our fruits and vegetables, but we use the ozonated water. I put that in fresh cut flowers. They'll last longer. I use it in my bath water with Epsom salts. So I bring in magnesium in through my skin, as well as the extra oxygen that's concentrated in the water from the ozone. I'll use ozonated water. I drink a glass a day. I use ozonated water in my water pick so that I actually do oral health for people that have that, which is amazing. So there are a lot of great uses for it. So that's been, and it's fairly inexpensive. I think it's about $100. So you get so much value, and you can use it in so many different ways in your household, that are inexpensive. It's inexpensive and it's really super useful.
Sinus irrigation. I'll ozonate water and
Yes.
use it for that. TheraFrost. I was wondering if you could speak
Okay.
about that.
Sure. The Frost is one of the latest devices that we made. It came off the back of working with Optimal Health, the high-end sports guys. They spend half of their season on the road. They use cold immersion, usually in training camp or when they're home in their locker rooms. They have it, but when they're on the road, they don't have access to it necessarily. And so basically, it lowers inflammation and it creates like what's called brown fat, which is a healthy fat system that we have in our body. It also creates what's called a cold shock protein. So this is part of hormesis, where we actually use both heat and cold therapy to employ as a stimulant, or it's a stressor, but it's a good stress. This word stress gets a bad rap, I think, but the body actually acclimates based on stressors and how the body adjusts. So when you can do contrast therapy like hot sauna and then jump into cold plunge, it's going to elicit an amazing response, which includes lengthening or stopping the shortening of telomeres, which is a barometer for your lifespan,
And aging,
as well
yes.
as
Yeah.
and aging. Yeah, so it's remarkable. It's one of my favorite stacks and things that I do now every day. The Frost is a portable format, so it folds up and delivers in actually a knapsack. So that's the tub and the top, and comes with a pump. But we also bring an electric pump, and you can set it up with the water in less than an hour. So it's great, and we do have a chilling mechanism that comes along with it. It's 1 horsepower, very high powered. It delivers a burst of ozone into the water every 20 minutes for 3 minutes. So that's going to keep any mold, bacteria, viruses from growing in the tank. We also have 2 filtration systems. One's a skimmer to pick lint out, and one is almost like the fluted filters you have under your sink in those modular subs, so it can take out any particulates in the water that you're immersing in. And the last thing that is very unique and separates us is that I actually created a chip that goes in the chiller that will restructure the water that you're immersing in. So that is very new. We also use gemstones, which is also a new advantage. So again, bringing earth energies. If anybody's studied structured water, when you bring your body next to structured water, it structures the water in your body. So when you're immersing, even in for a minute or two, it's actually restructuring the water inside of you, which also helps with cell communication, with cell methylation. Remember, we heal on a cell level. So these are all natural healing events that we can do in 2 or 3 minutes going into that immersion tank. It's remarkable. We have an iOS app, so we sync the chiller to your handheld, so you can adjust the temperature and time. You can set it like an alarm clock to go off at a certain time at night and wake up at a certain time in the morning, which is how I have mine set. We pretty much thought of everything, and it's truly amazing.
One question would be, how often do you need to change the water out?
It depends on how you're using it. Like for me, it's my wife and I. She likes to watch me do it. I'm getting her close to getting in it herself. But I do it pretty much every day when I'm not traveling. I change my water maybe every other month.
Okay.
When it's used on the road or like in a clinic or in a gym or a big family, you might change the water once a week.
Okay.
We sell this as an accessory, but you can simply just unplug the hose and let it drain, which by itself will maybe take an hour or so to drain out. Or you can use, for $30, you can buy a little sump pump. It'll drain all the water out in 20 minutes. It's really very low maintenance. So it really depends on the individual, the family, the use as to how soon you want to change the water out. But we brought these to various different conferences. At the Keto Conference in Austin, Texas, in 2 days, we had 100 people immersing, which was just remarkable. 37% of them were newbies. They had never done it before. And it's truly amazing to watch people transform when they face their fears. Like, there's no way I'm getting my body in 40 degrees water. When they face their fears and come out feeling that strength, knowing that they've experienced and gone through it.
I love the portability too, because I'm a renter. And if I move, it's a lot to move this massive sauna or this hard cold plunge. So I love that they can be transported easily. I brought a lot of the things from Therasage that I love, the sauna, the PEMF mat, the heating mat, to a retreat I just hosted. So I love that you can move it. About what size of a human could go in there? Is there a height limit or?
Well, we picked out the size of the tank. We tested it out in focus groups. And this one, we've had ball players that were 6'5", 6'6" in it.
Okay.
And then the average person. It will hold a larger person in it comfortably. And this is different an experience and the way that it's set up than a lot of the ones that you see advertised that are porcelain or metal. They're not really very comfortable and they're not ergonomically designed. Ours, we can have an oversized person. They can sit more than comfortably in it. They can fully immerse, including their heads if they want to.
Is it made out of rubber or what is the material?
Yes, it's airplane grade, like institutional grade rubber. And it kind of seems like, I don't know if you've ever seen these inflatable paddle boards. So it's a very, very thick rubber. There's no leaching. We've tested the waters. Okay. It's terrific.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate all that you've shared. There's so many more amazing products, but we touched on the ones that are my favorites and some that I would love to add. I don't know if we talked about the weighted blanket, though. Is that something that you have just a minute to explain that for anybody listening?
It's simple and it's great.
Okay.
So the studies on weighted blankets is enormous. And what piqued my interest was in the autistic community, where a lot of children have trouble settling down their nervous systems. So I got tuned into that. So I thought the concept of weighted blanket is good by itself, but how could I dial it in and kind of put my spin on it? And so the first thing I did was we have the only weighted blanket in the world that has a silver lining. And that silver thread creates like a Faraday cage where it protects the body from any exogenous frequencies, either that were in your house or your neighbor's house or apartment that may be coming through the walls. So now you're sleeping in a protected, shielded way. The next thing, we don't use like organic products that may degrade like rice and there's many other applications. What we use is glass and crystal, and we use earth elements that are peppered in the blanket. So we're bringing those earth energies into the blanket setup. So you're now getting protection, you're getting earth energies. And what weighted blankets do is they basically restrict your motion. And so, you having an Oura ring, you can see the difference in your deep sleep. And when we've studied sleep and sleeping challenges, basically between the hours of 12 and 4 in the morning, when your brain can get into a REM or a delta wavelength, it's actually the repair state. And so absent that, if you can get quantity sleep. And we see this with infectious disease like Lyme patients. They get 14 hours of sleep, but they wake up and they're tired because they're not getting restorative sleep.
Right.
So how do we build your restorative sleep? And I've almost doubled my restorative sleep. I went from an hour and a half to almost 3 hours of REM sleep. 3 hours of REM or delta is equivalent to almost 8 to 9 hours of just regular sleep. And so I don't toss and turn. I'm pretty stationary. I don't feel restricted. It did take me about a week to get used to it, frankly. And the materials, we have a duvet, and the outer materials are 700 thread counts. So it's like the finest on your skin. It feels like velvet. It's truly amazing. So I'm pretty proud of that.
I'm excited.
And we have an eye pillow that goes with it. That's a weighted eye mask. And so that'll help open up sinuses and again, darken the room so that your pineal gland isn't activated by light. So between restriction and light deprivation, which is an important thing for sleep, for people with sleep challenges, I think that's a very low barrier of entry and with amazing, amazing results.
That will definitely be the next one that I try. I love being able to experiment and see how these things affect me. I've already seen great data from the sauna, from the PEMF mat. I don't really use the heating pad for biohacking or optimization as much as comfort if I ever need it. But this sounds very exciting, and I'd be interested to see what changes I notice. So if you're listening, I have a discount code, which is Ashley Taylor Wellness, and that saves 10% site-wide on Therasage products. I absolutely love them. Obviously, if you have any questions, you can reach out. You can go to the website. Everyone's always been so helpful. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know we went over, but just to go in detail, and it's really about supporting the body so that it can do what it needs to do, regardless of whatever condition you might be dealing with. It's about giving the body support so that it can get back to the state to do what it needs to do. So,
Right, exactly.
yeah. So thank you again so much, Robby. Anything you want to say before we close out for today?
Well, I just appreciate the time that we spent today and the opportunity to express ourselves. The questions you asked were really spot on. I think your audience hopefully will get a lot from it. But more than anything, as we're coming through the other end of the tunnel from the COVID scenario and the challenges we've had community-wise, there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of great biotech out there, not just Therasage stuff, but just for everyone to know that we are available, that there are affordable kinds of biotech that's available that you can bring into your home, integrate into your lifestyle, that can make a huge difference in the way you feel today and the way you feel in the future. And I think that is amazing and very inspirational. And again, thank you for having us today on.
Thank you. I want to ask you one more question. Can people use HSA or FSA benefits to purchase these products if the end of the year is coming? Great.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. There's that. And we also have programs for financing, like zero interest financing when you qualify, and you find out right away. So if you can't afford it right now, it'll spread your payments, equal payments over 12 months. And so again, we start off with what we consider a very high value, meaning low price and a lot of technology. But even that, it might be a struggle for somebody listening today. And so we employ, you can use some insurances will actually cover it if it's written as a therapy by your health practitioner. And certainly if you have a plan, savings plan that will allow you to use some of that monies towards health devices, we can qualify there as well.
Oh, amazing. I'm so glad that you answered that. All right. Well, thank you again. This was incredible. And I hope you all learned something. I sure did. I love these products, but I learned a little bit more about what they're doing, and I'm excited to try other things, and I'll let you all know my thoughts. So thank you again, Robby. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Hope to do this again sometime, Ashley. Best of luck to you and your community. Appreciate being here.
Thank you for listening to the High Maintenance Hippie podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review, ideally a 5-star review if you loved it. All of this is free of charge and really helps me to be able to run the podcast. If you take a screenshot and tag me, I'll repost you and shout you out on Instagram. So tag Ashley Taylor Wellness and High Maintenance Hippie Podcast. If you have any feedback or guests that you'd like to have, I would love to hear from you so that I'm not just talking at you. I really want to deliver things that are valuable. So send me an email with any feedback, suggestions, or ideas for guests at ashley@ashleytaylorwellness.com. And I will leave you with a disclaimer. Please know that this is not medical advice or replacement for seeking medical care. Everything discussed on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. Always consult with your medical provider before making any changes. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.